This is PrintSushi.com with a quick tutorial about setting up bleeds for your artwork. Every time you send something to print, you have to add something called bleed and set up your files properly so that they print great and look fantastic when you get them. Let's talk about a couple of things. The first is bleed. Bleed can be confusing for a lot of people to understand. But the simple way to think about it is just taking whatever size artwork that you have and adding a border around that and sending that piece of artwork with a border to the printer. That's what bleed is. It takes your normal size artwork and it just adds a border, and that allows the printer in the printing process to go through our presses and to be trimmed off in the exact way that you want it to be printed. So let's talk about how to make and document with bleed. What I'm going to do in Photoshop, which is what we recommend to use for all of your file preparations, that or Illustrator or InDesign, one of those three programs, but you can use others. I'm going to start by creating a new file. And let's notice a couple of things. Let's say that I wanted something that was 6 inches wide by 6 inches tall. Let's say that was my final product that I wanted to print. So let's go ahead and set the document up as a 6 by 6. Let's give it a 300 resolution. Be careful with this because a lot of times Photoshop in particular will by default make your artwork 72 DPI instead of 300. So we want that 300 DPI. And then also you want to note that the color mode needs to be CMYK. Now again, be careful because Photoshop in particular often will open a document as RGB. That's red, green, blue, and that's great for web, but in print we need that to be a 4-color print process, and the 4 colors are cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And so make sure that your resolution is high resolution and your color mode is CMYK. If you'll do those very first thing as you're setting up the document, that'll save you a lot of trouble way down the road. So let's set up that document as a 6 by 6 document. Now, if I were to create my art and send this to press, I've got a problem because it has no bleed. It's just the 6 by 6, which is my final product. Here's a great way to set up the bleed. If you'll grab from the rulers, grab some guidelines and go ahead and snap these guidelines to the edges of your document, and we'll set the final space for your document with these guidelines. Now that's exactly what we want the final product to look like, but we haven't added bleed. So let's go up here to the image drop down. Let's go to canvas size, and now let's add our bleed. Now if you want a 1/8 inch bleed on each side, then you have to actually make the size of the document a 1/4 inch because that's 1/8 on each side. 2/8 then would be a 1/4. So I'm going to make this a 6.25 by 6.25 document. I'm anchoring it to the center, which is going to stretch it out from the center, and I'm going to hit OK. Now watch what happened. My guidelines stayed the same, which tells me my original size of the document, but the document has now added 1/8 of an inch bleed at every side. Now what does this mean? Well, what this means is when I import any kind of image, let's say I wanted to import this image into the document, I want to make sure that this image bleeds all the way to the edge of the document, not just to my guidelines. Yes, I know we only want it to ultimately be the size of these guidelines. But if I send it to press like that, it has no bleed, and so all I'm going to do is stretch this out so that it's the actual size of the whole document, and that accounts for my bleed. Now what's going to happen is when we send this to press, it'll get trimmed right where you see the guidelines, and it'll be perfectly ready for press. So again, just as a recap, we've set up our document, given it a 1/8 inch bleed all around the edges. We've made sure it's CMYK, and we've given it a high resolution like 300 DPI, and that is going to be what it takes to make sure that your printing project looks fantastic at PrintSushi.com. Of Of course, the very last step is making sure that we've got this in a file format that is acceptable. One of the things that we suggest that you do is make this into a PDF before you upload it to PrintSushi.com. This is very simple. If you'll just go to File and Save As, and let's go ahead and make it a Photoshop PDF and hit Save. When you hit Save, it's going to give you a dialog box. In this case, just choose the preset that is Press Quality, as you can see here, and then pay attention to a few things. These will already be set for you because Adobe does this, but make sure they haven't changed. Like the compression needs to be image quality of maximum. We don't want a low quality image. We want a very maximum size image as we can get. Make sure that we haven't downsampled this to anything like a 72 dpi or something like that. We want to make sure that we keep this at the high resolution that it is. And then make sure that nothing's changed in terms of color conversion. And those shouldn't change as long as you're choosing the presets. So if you'll choose the right preset, which is press quality or high quality press, that will be awesome. So just save as PDF. And what this will do is it'll take the guidelines off, of course, but it will create a press ready PDF, and you're all set.